Something seismic just happened in Washington, D.C., a moment that will echo far beyond the marble steps of the Supreme Court. This time, the shock didn't come from Congress or the White House, but from the nation's highest court, a place often shrouded in tradition and mystery. In a series of unanimous decisions, the 9 justices tackled some of the most divisive issues in America: free speech, gun rights, and religious liberty, issues that have sparked heated debates in homes, schools, and city halls across the country. These weren't minor legal tweaks, they were sweeping rulings that reshaped the legal landscape for all of us, setting new precedents that will guide future generations. The court addressed questions at the heart of our national identity, questions about who we are as a people, and what values we choose to protect. Can the government pressure companies to silence voices, or does the First Amendment stand as a shield for all opinions, even the unpopular ones? Can foreign countries sue American gun makers for violence that happens beyond our borders, or does American law draw a line in the sand? Can a state decide if a charity is religious enough to receive support, or does that power belong to the people and their faith communities? The answers were clear, direct, and, remarkably, unanimous. In a time when agreement seems impossible, the justices spoke with one voice. In a polarized nation where trust in institutions is low and partisanship is high, such unity is almost unheard of. Yet justices appointed by both parties set aside differences to clarify the rules on issues that touch our daily lives, showing that the law can still unite us. These decisions affect gun store owners, religious charities, and anyone who feels wronged at work, real people facing real challenges. They're not abstract, they're real, with immediate consequences that ripple through families, businesses, and communities. Understanding what the court said and why it spoke with one voice is essential for anyone who cares about their rights, their freedoms, and the future of our democracy. This is a story about power, freedom, and the rare search for common ground. A moment when the Supreme Court reminded us that, even in divided times, unity is possible. Before we dive in, let's talk about why a unanimous Supreme Court decision matters. The Supreme Court's 9 justices are the final word on America's toughest legal questions. Usually they're split, liberals versus conservatives 5-4 or 6-3. These divisions often mirror the country's own political rifts, but a 9-0 decision? That's rare, and powerful. When all justices agree, it means the law is so clear it transcends ideology. Unanimous rulings carry enormous weight, making it nearly impossible for lower courts or politicians to ignore. It's like a family all agreeing on dinner, debate ends, decision stands. In these recent cases, justices from both sides united on hot-button issues. That unity sends a message. Some principles are above politics. When the court speaks as one, the country listens. That's why these decisions are so extraordinary. One major unanimous ruling this term centered on the intersection of the Second Amendment and the responsibilities of gun manufacturers. The case drew national attention, highlighting the ongoing debate over gun rights and accountability in America. In Smith & Wesson Brands vs. Mexico, the Mexican government attempted to hold U.S. gun makers responsible for gun violence within its borders, arguing that their marketing and distribution practices contributed to crime and bloodshed in Mexico. The lawsuit sought billions in damages, and if successful, could have set a precedent for international claims against American companies. But the Supreme Court, in a rare 9-0 decision, firmly rejected Mexico's arguments and shut the door on such lawsuits, emphasizing the clarity of existing U.S. law. The justices upheld the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, a federal law passed in 2005. This law shields gun makers and sellers from being held liable when their products are later used in crimes by others, unless they themselves broke the law in the sale or marketing of the firearm. Writing for the court, Justice Elena Kagan explained that gun manufacturers cannot be sued for the independent actions of third parties, reinforcing the idea that responsibility lies with the individual who commits the crime. Supporters of the ruling compare it to blaming Ford for a drunk driving accident, arguing that manufacturers shouldn't be held responsible for the misuse of their products by others. Critics, however, argue that this legal shield gives gun makers unfair immunity and prevents victims of gun violence from seeking justice in court. They say it makes it nearly impossible to hold the industry accountable, even in cases of alleged negligence. The court made clear that any change to this legal framework must come from Congress, not the courts, placing the responsibility for reform squarely in the hands of lawmakers. For now, the legal shield for gun makers remains firmly in place, protecting the industry from a wave of potential lawsuits. This decision is seen as a major victory and a cornerstone for Second Amendment advocates, who argue it preserves Americans' constitutional rights and the firearms industry's stability. But for those seeking to hold gunmakers liable, it marks a significant setback, underscoring the ongoing divide over gun policy in the United States. Another unanimous decision reshaped free speech protections. In NRA versus Vulo, the NRA accused a New York regulator of pressuring banks to cut ties with them for political reasons. The court ruled government officials cannot use threats or coercion to silence groups they dislike. Justice Sotomayor wrote that expressing opinions is fine, but using power to punish speech is not. This precedent protects everyone, from advocacy groups to journalists, against government jawboning. The Vulo decision quickly became relevant when officials threatened TV stations over critical content, sparking national debate. The Supreme Court's ruling now stands as a powerful shield for free expression. The court also delivered a unanimous win for religious liberty in Catholic Charities Bureau versus Wisconsin. The case: can the government decide if a charity is religious enough for tax exemptions? Wisconsin said Catholic Charities wasn't, because it served everyone. The court disagreed, ruling the state can't define or limit religious missions. Justice Sotomayor wrote, "Government can't favor one type of religious expression over another. This protects faith-based groups, regardless of whom they serve, from government overreach." The fight isn't over. Wisconsin is now trying to eliminate the exemption for all. Even a unanimous Supreme Court decision doesn't always end the battle, but the message is clear: religious freedom can't be narrowly defined by the state. The Supreme Court also tackled civil rights and reverse discrimination. In Ames versus Ohio, a white employee claimed he was passed over for a promotion due to race. Previously, plaintiffs in such cases faced a higher legal bar. The court, in an opinion by Justice Jackson, struck down the double standard. Now all employees, regardless of race, face the same standard when alleging discrimination. The law must be colorblind equal opportunity, equal access to justice. This ruling levels the playing field for everyone in the workplace. The court's message: civil rights protections apply equally to all. What makes these decisions truly remarkable is not just their content, but who wrote them. Liberal justices authoring opinions that, in many cases, favor traditionally conservative causes, and even more striking, all 9 justices agreeing in full. Such consensus is rare in today's polarized climate. In a time of deep division across the nation, the court managed to find common ground on some of our most fundamental constitutional principles. This rare unity gives the rulings a special legitimacy and demonstrates that, at least on certain issues, the law can rise above politics and partisanship. The decisions reinforce a central theme: there are real, meaningful limits on government power, and those limits are essential to our democracy. The government can't silence speech, define religious missions, create unequal legal standards, or trample on the rights of individuals and groups, nor can it hold entire industries liable for the actions of others. Ensuring fairness and accountability remain at the heart of our legal system. The court drew a clear, unmistakable line protecting individual rights from government overreach, reminding us that these protections are not just theoretical, they are real and enforceable. The future remains uncertain, political battles will continue, and new challenges to our freedoms will inevitably arise as society evolves. But for now, the court has armed citizens with powerful tools to defend their freedoms, empowering people from all walks of life to stand up for their rights. These unanimous decisions remind us our rights to speak, to worship, to assemble, and to seek justice are not privileges granted by government, and being treated equally under the law isn't a partisan issue. It's a fundamental part of what it means to be American. In a rare moment of clarity and unity, all 9 justices stood together to defend these essential freedoms for everyone, and that's a message worth remembering, a reminder that, even in divided times, our shared rights can unite us all.